I thank my distinguished fellow panelists from academia, diplomacy, law and justice, and community service organizations. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome, in order of speakers, Councillor Mr. Shivratan, Dr. Savita Das Gupta, Mr. Stephen Cohen, Honorable Hope Zimmerman, Ms. Tiloma Jayasinghe, Honorable Chris Quinn, Honorable Joy M. Watson, and Mr. Bobby Kumar Kaloti. More on each panelist, women and men, community leaders representing many NGOs and community organizations, including AIA, AICAW, Gopio, Rana, Pace University, Fordham University, Awake, Manvi, Sakhi, Sneha, Asian Women's Safety Net, Seva, Safe Horizons, Asha, Ray of Hope, Hindu Temple, New York court system, lawyers, the press, and many others in this audience. And we are really very grateful, such a large turnout representing so many organizations, and that shows that you care about this issue. And therefore, I thank you for being here with us. The theme of women's empowerment has been our mission at the Helena Kaushik Education Foundation. Missions in India and many seminars are held here. We believe it to be society's loss not to give equal opportunity and not to benefit from the potential of women's contribution in everything along with men. My wife Helena, as many of you know, passed away on August 24, but she has left a living legacy in a women's college in her name in India. I invite all of you to visit the college on the website www.helenakaushik.org.
Zimmerman, Honorable Chris Quinn, MS Tiloma Jayasinghe, Honorable Judge Joy Watson, Steve Cohen, Professor Surendra Kaushik, my colleague Shivratan, Deputy Consul General Devyani, Bobby, distinguished brothers, sisters, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome the first gathering in the consulate where I see women in a very high percentage, almost 85–90%. I wish it was 100%, meaning the Consul General was also a lady. But it's a great pleasure and privilege. I just would like to say that how honored we are all to host this particular seminar. We always, in the consulate, accorded very high priority to women's issues in general, but that emanates from our firm belief that we need to bring women in the mainstream society on equal terms, on the basis of the basic human dignity that each of us deserves in the true sense of the term, irrespective of where they come from, what economic background, which country, what religion, what caste, what ethnicity, irrespective of all that, if we can, as a part of the general value that we cherish as human beings, that each of us deserves the basic dignity, that if we can provide a platform to have a brainstorming for that purpose. That's how we started this. We also realized that however much we try, and even though we have in South Asia particularly a number of women prime ministers, we have the universal suffrage right from the time of independence. We have a number of women cabinet ministers, a number of ambassadors and high commissioners of India abroad, a number of them are women. And even then, we have a number of issues at the basic level that we have to tackle. Part of it comes from the mindset, which comes from the well-known adage of Manu, who said famously that Nastri Swatantra Marhati, a woman does not deserve freedom. Even then, in very, very ancient times too, we had women like Gargi and Maitreyi, who were very well-known Vidushis, or the wise women of those times. Women have actively participated in life in India and elsewhere. In the United States, we are yet to have a president or a vice president who is a woman. I hope the day is not far away. Inequality does persist, despite huge attempts in all countries to bring women on par with men, you can say, or maybe giving them equal opportunities to progress in life. We need to perhaps advance on 3 different levels, which are, of course, integrated, they're not separated. Number 1, at the thought level, we need a continuous refinement of human mind at all levels. Despite feminism, despite the advancement of women in many areas, I think we have not been able to conquer the evil that resides in a typical man's mind. That evil which does not recognize that everybody has equal right to progress, grow in life. That's the advancement of thought, I call. The second is at functional level, education and the legal systems, making both of them more amenable, more conducive to women's growth and advancement. And third, at a very basic practical level, fighting the evil that exists in various forms, may it be issues like sexual assault, work discrimination, inequality, expectations from women which are not necessarily expectations from men, the different upbringings of boys and girls that we see in the households, expecting dowry when your son is getting married, and treating the daughter-in-laws in ways that are not fit to be considered human. So these are the things at practical level. For us here in the United States, we have a unique problem. We have a large number of immigrants from all over the world.
Marriages are like cultural shock, generation gap, harassment after marriage, concealment of earlier marriage by their spouses, and lack of social security here. In addressing these issues, the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs has taken initiative to create awareness among the prospective brides
and so to speak. That is, they become international citizens. And it becomes more true as she moves to another country, becomes abused there, and she may have to move to another country where she asks for redress. And what's the problem? You may ask, well, so what? The problem is that much of the times, many of the times, the women fall through the cracks of safety nets that have been erected with the idea that people live in one country. So for the women,
we have laws here in the United States, and I'll address myself mostly to New York, because that's where I practiced for the last 40 years. We have laws that protect every aspect of behavior in a domestic relationship. We have divorce laws, we have custody laws, we have protective orders. We can regulate everything. It's judges who sit here, who when something is brought to their attention, can deal with it effectively, efficiently, and thoroughly. Not a problem. But to reach equality requires more than just words. It requires 2 other components. One, the knowledge that the laws exist, that you have access to the laws, that unlike maybe in other countries, our courts are open to everybody, and everybody who comes to our courts receives the same attention and the same protection.
Of women who were once girls in the family. And I want to tell you a story that illustrates how difficult it is, how necessary cultural literacy is for all the members of the judiciary, and what a role the Indian community can play in educating the judicial community, and why seminars and conferences like this are essential for all of us to learn from the community, not just from us to learn from, for you to learn from us. And so I was struck when I read the brochure that I just received this evening from Manavi, and the highlighted language, which I'm going to read to you and then tell you a story. The highlighted language in this brochure says, Manavi believes that ideologies, conditions, attitudes, and behaviors that perpetuate women's subordination in society constitute violence toward them. I had a case 2 weeks ago. I sit in the matrimonial part where people...
I don't have a story, but I have 3 daughters. Somebody else, please. You can keep it if you're the last one to have it. But the reason that I pass it out to you is to look at it so that you can see it and see what happens. And the most important piece of it is the bottom of it. Judge Zimmerman spoke about it. Judge Zimmerman has issued many of them. Judge Watson has issued many of them. Steve has asked for hundreds of them when he's represented people. And talking about people's rights, if you look at the bottom of it, and I'm just going to read this to you. The criminal procedure law provides that presentation of a copy of this order of protection to any police officer or peace officer acting pursuant to his or her special duties shall authorize and in some situations may require such officer to arrest a defendant who is alleged to have violated its terms and to bring him before the court to face penalties authorized by law. Mr. Cohen spoke about it. You have to be able to get to the court before you can get an order of protection. That is the most important piece. Women obviously have to know about it. I'm going to give you a couple of definitions of definitions of things that can bring you to court. Not only family court, where Judge Zimmerman used to sit. Many times there's problems, family offenses, orders of protection can be issued. There are many criminal cases where orders of protection are issued as well. I think the good professor spoke about harassment. What is harassment? I'm going to give you the definition straight from the penal code. And think about it. Think if it's ever happened to you. A person is guilty of harassment in the second degree with intent to harass, annoy, or alarm another. It doesn't have to be much. He or she strikes, shoves, kicks, or otherwise subjects such other person to physical contact, or attempts or threatens to do the same. Or he or she follows a person in or about a public place. Has that ever happened to any of you? That's the simplest. That's a violation. The simplest offense we have in New York State is a violation. The maximum penalty is $250 fine, 15 days in jail. Ladies and gentlemen, you're entitled to have an order of protection if somebody has been harassing you. We can go from harassment, there's aggravated harassment, there's more important cases. There's assault. Assault is when someone strikes you, strikes, pushes, kicks, with intent to cause physical injury, and some physical injury occurs. There's assault in the second degree, which is a much higher offense, when serious physical injury occurs. I keep going back to what Mr. Cohen said because the women have to know that this is their right. This is their right not to be a victim of a crime, and that they're allowed to take it to the next step and have somebody arrested. Not only that, New York State is in the process. The Chief Judge has ordered it. There are many pilot programs running around New York State. There's at least one in the city, there's one in Nassau County. There are now human trafficking courts. set up. There is a big push to create human trafficking courts throughout the 62 counties in New York State. It's a recognition of the problem, and we have to do something about it. This is the first step. I do have something else here. I was supposed to speak about resources and whatnot, and I will tell you.
Sexual offenses, also homicide, often the ultimate domestic violence when women in subject of domestic violence were killed, when their voices were ultimately silenced and they couldn't be around to have the next generation learn from them. But it's such an important part of the work that I did in law enforcement, and now certainly as a judge I'm presiding over cases such as that. And what I found then, and I'm learning still continues now, is the most difficult aspect.
We were talking about it, what to do. I'm like, well, I'm going to go to the consulate. So maybe someone here can help us out. So I'll be here, and if there's anything we can do to work out together so that this woman can get this order enforced, I would be very grateful. But, I'm sorry, can I have a few more minutes? No, I'm not done. I'm so not done. So that's why I'm late. But I do want to say that, the theory of change that Saki believes in is that you cannot help families unless you help women. And I believe that our community in the US is so strong and growing. We're the fastest growing Asian demographic. The Indian Americans in the US are the richest. We are in political office. Indians, so I'm going to say South Asians. I'm Sri Lankan, but I'm married to an Indian, so. But we're present. We should use our collective power to advocate for change and for the most marginalized in our community. We're not.
Are victims of domestic violence, and
5%.
Yeah, and it's a smaller, no doubt, it's a smaller part of the population, but we have to be very careful in the court to be alert to all issues of domestic violence.
Provision under the Convention and the child is kidnapped in another jurisdiction, you can file petition under that.
India is not a signatory to the child abduction part of the Hague Convention. So that is one of the reasons.
What are the challenges that you face? I mean, where is it that the community and the governments from both sides can step in and help you? Whenever I get cases that I refer to you, it's usually you do the counseling, immediate counseling for them, and then you either refer them to lawyers if they want to get a divorce. But then the problem I face is when they ask us for legal help, and we do not have those funds. And I believe you do not have those funds. So where do we get that, what Renee had asked, how do we go after that step? Having shown them the direction where to go, is that a challenge that you face? And I also want to ask Mr. Shivratan, I know that the scheme that we have now, it does not have sufficient money to provide further legal help. We can only refer them to NGOs like Nandi and Saki. But are there any other funds in the MOIA, the Ministry of Overseas Affairs scheme, that we can utilize? For example, what you said, the Indian Community Welfare Fund. Could that be used for providing legal aid and other aid that we need?
When they are in two jurisdictions, when they're split jurisdiction. And I think all of us who work in this area can attest to it that the barriers are tremendous in making any change, particularly when the cases that you refer to us, the situations that you refer to us.
So I think, again, I'm a lawyer, so I do believe in the system, but there are ways for us to work together otherwise, like enforcing that order for that woman that I'm working with, or what can the consulate do to help support its immigrant population in this country outside of the law? You don't have enough money to pay for a full legal fee, but what we do is more than just match women up with attorneys. Like there's ESL, English as a second language courses, financial literacy courses, healing and clinical counseling groups, therapy groups that we do. There's a lot of work that needs to be done when you've experienced domestic violence so that you feel self-confident again, you have self-efficacy, which means that you feel like you can do things, And so there are ways for us to engage whether it's through awareness raising, whether it's through small fundraising or community gatherings like this is incredibly powerful. You know, so there are ways that we can work together outside of that scheme that I think will be highly effective.
So I see you're gathered here, and there are so many good groups like Madhavi and Saki and many others in the room. Do your groups, so what I'm seeking is actually advice to community service organizations like AIA, and I see represented to so many other organizations like FIA and BANA and all that. What suggestion, two of you or other community, other women groups in the room can advise us as to how can we be proactive and prevent this from happening? Because it seems like most of the problems that we're hearing are relating to problems in marriages, problems relating to child rearing, as it is when we come here, there are a lot of cultural conflicts, and now we end up with busy lives, husband and wife both working, raising children, husband and wife both love the child, and therefore they fight for the child, and then it's downhill from there. And I see this.
The panel for such a timely discussion, and Professor Kaushik for conducting us through it. And of course, without the audience, we couldn't have made this. My deepest gratitude to the Indian community who has turned up in such numbers over here. Kudos to all of you. And this is not the end, this is just the beginning of our focus on women. And we wanted to talk about social and economic empowerment of women. And of course, that cannot happen without education. And thank you for bringing that point. Unfortunately, we did not have enough time to delve into that aspect, but we will talk about economic empowerment through education. I'd like to thank each one of you here, all the associations, whether it's FIA, I can see Mr. Yash Pansori here, I can see America, AIA, and Mr. Neil Modi, so many of others that I can't even recognize at this point or name because there's so many of you. I want to exhort all of you to take this forward. Each one of you, please have an awareness program, once in a while for violence against women of every age and children, and support these organizations, these South Asian organizations which are working on these issues. Lawyers amongst you, please provide pro bono help. Health workers over here, there's so many Indian doctors, perhaps we can all focus on giving pro bono help to, or even donations, this is a rich community, to the work of these organizations, which are usually cash straps, as they said. How many of you can start up leadership programs for South Asian women in northeastern New York? How many of us can highlight this issue in the media? The media is here. All of you can prove it. Play a role, and we are here to support that. We are here to take that dialogue forward under the able guidance of Ambassador Malay, who is champion of women and has done many things for women in India. And we will continue. We would like to make this one of our biggest agenda items as a consulate of India here. I would end, but at this point before I end, I cannot end without calling Mr. Bobby Kumar, who is the generous supporter. He's the president of Friends for Health. He takes high interest in health, and especially health for women, and of course women's rights. And generous support of Professor Kaushik, who runs the Kaushik Foundation. These both individuals have provided the financial support for the refreshments and the logistics of this organization. A big thanks to both of you. And I would also want to recognize two more ladies here who are working, doing great work. One for the Indo-Caribbean community, and she has been recognized by her own community. She's Patricia Jordan Langford. Please rise. I just want to and secondly, who is doing the Women's Education Project in India. And she's educating. And
the time is very constrained. Phone call I ever received
And it happened to be, Renu Lobo was doing the live interview with me. And I couldn't take that call, but I given the number that day. And when a woman called me, she said, how I can have my son get killed?